Hey guys, today for your 10-minute math, we're going to do I think it's kind of a review of improper fractions and mixed numbers. And let's get started. So we've been learning about fractions on and off throughout the year. And improper fractions are when your numerators are on top, denominator is your bottom number of the fraction, when your numerator is greater than your denominator. So real quick, let's just remember what fractions are. They're parts of a whole, right? So here we got a cookie, big cookie, broken into thirds. Okay, and your numerator is how much out of 3. So let's say I wanted to talk about 2/3. That's 2/3 of the cookie. 2 out of 3. 2/3 is the same as 2 out of 3. 2/3 of the cookie. That's what 2/3 looks like. 2 is your numerator, 3 is your denominator. But let's say you have a whole bunch of cookies. You have more than one cookie because we know 3/3, that's one whole cookie, right? 3 out of 3 is one whole. But let's say there were more than one cookie. Let's say there were 4 cookies. Each of them broken into thirds. And let's say during last night's bake-off at home, you made 4 big cookies, and 7/3 of the cookies were eaten. 7/3. So 7/3 is improper. It's an improper fraction because the numerator is greater than the denominator. We want to turn that into a mixed number. Let's figure out how to do that. We know that 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 is one whole. 4/3, 5/3, 6/3 is now 2 wholes. So that's 3/3 is one whole. 4, 5, 6/3 is 2 wholes. 7/3 would be one more third. So 7/3 is the same as one whole, 2 wholes, and 1 extra third. So 7/3 is the same as 2 and 1/3. That's the mixed number because it's mixed. It's got a whole number and a fraction. This is the improper fraction. It's improper because the numerator is greater than the denominator. It is the same as 2 and 1/3. Let's try another one. Let's say we had an improper fraction like, instead of thirds, let's make it out of fourths. Also big cookies, because I like cookies. Everyone likes cookies. We'll make 5 giant cookies, break them into fourths. And let's say last night at your party, 9/4 of the cookies were eaten. 9/4, 9 out of 4. Okay. So we know 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is one whole. 5, 6, 7, 8/4 is 2 wholes. 9/4, 9/4. So one whole is 4/4. Another 4/4 gives you 8/4 plus 1/4. So 9/4 is the same as 2 wholes and 1/4. This is the mixed number. It's mixed because it's got a whole number and a fraction. This is improper because the numerator is greater than the denominator. Let's try another one. And now I'll also show you another way to solve it. I feel like the pink isn't very visible, so I'll just stay with blue. Again, let's make these into fourths. And let's say 6/4 were eaten. And you want to know what 6/4 is equivalent to as a mixed number. 6/4 is improper because the numerator is greater than the denominator. We want to turn it into a mixed number. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is one whole. 5/4, 6/4. So 6/4 is the same as one whole and how many fourths? 2/4. Which we also know is the same as 1 and 1/2, of course. So 6/4 is the same as 1 and 1/2. This is the mixed number in simplest form. This is the improper fraction. Now, another way to look at that, we know that fractions and division are the same thing. For 6/4, we could say numerator divided by denominator. Numerator divided by denominator. Because fractions are the same thing as division. Division and fractions are the same thing. If you remember, that's the division sign. Numerator divided by denominator. It's the same thing. It was 6/4, right? So numerator, 6, divided by 4. We ask ourselves, how many times does 4 go into 6? Right? How many times can we bank 4 into 6? Well, 4 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. And what's left over? Fractions are all about what's left over. Out of, how much is left over out of 4? Well, 4 goes into 6 one time. 4 goes into 6 one time. That's going to be my whole number. 1 times 4 is 4. How much is left over? 2 is left over. Whatever's left over, that's your numerator. And your denominator 4 stays the same. 1 and 2/4, which is the same as 1 1/2. Because we want to know how many times does 4 go into 6? One time, one whole. What's left over? 2 is left over out of 4. 1 and 2/4, which is the same as 1 1/2, which is another way to make 6/4 into 1 1/2 as a mixed number through division. Let's try one more. We'll look at it as a picture, and then we'll do it with division, turning an improper fraction into a mixed number. Let's say 10/3. Okay, so let's first look at it as a picture. Break a bunch of circles into thirds. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 is 1 whole. 4/3, 5/3, 6/3 is 2 wholes. 7/3, 8/3, 9/3 is 3 wholes. 10/3, which is the same as 1, 2, 3, and a third. So 10/3 is the same as 3 and 1/3. We could also say numerator divided by denominator. How many times does 3 go into 10? It goes in 3 times. That's my whole number. 3 times 3 is 9. What's left over? 1. 1 is left over. That's how much is left over out of 3. 3 and a third is the mixed number. 10/3 is the improper fraction. And since it's a 10-minute math, let's try one more for realsies, and I'll see if you guys can figure this one out. Okay? You can figure it out any way you want on paper. You could possibly even do it mentally. Let's try 11/4. Make that into a mixed number. And tell me how you got your answer. Maybe you did it as a picture. 4/4 is 1 whole. 8/4 is 2 wholes. 9, 10, 11/4. 11/4 is 2 wholes and 3/4 left over. Or you could say numerator divided by denominator. 4 goes into 11 2 times. That's my whole number. 2 times 4 is 8, with 3 left over. 3 is left over out of 4. The denominator stays the same, 2 and 3/4. That's the mixed number. This is the improper fraction. Hopefully that was helpful. Do your best, and then we'll be looking at a new lesson with adding fractions, which is the same as, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Repeated addition with fractions.